All right, welcome back everyone to another Algebra 2 video. Mr. Beseda here. I had a few requests for an extra instructional video on the factoring of trinomials, so I wanted to go ahead and put that out for today. Now, one of the keys to understanding how to factor trinomials is understanding where you get your answer from when multiplying. So we have a question here, x plus 7 times x minus 2. And if I wanted to actually multiply that out, what I would do is I would take each part of the first set of parentheses and distribute it into the second set. So if I distribute that x first, that gives me x squared minus 2x. I would then distribute the 7, and if I distributed that, I would get 7x minus 14, 7 times 2 being 14. When I then combine my terms, I end up with x squared plus 5x minus 14, which is a trinomial. Now, looking at that, the key understanding here is that I need to figure out how to go backwards from this answer to what I had originally. And that happens in 3 parts. The first is understanding that the x squared comes from the x's at the start of each set of parentheses. At the back end, our negative 14 is coming from multiplying the two numbers at the back end, 7 times negative 2. And the only thing that's left then is this 5x. And since the 5x comes from combining like terms, we call that our check, and that's the last thing that we'll look at when we're trying to get a factorization. Because simply looking at the x squared and the negative 14, the first and the third terms, will allow us to get a guess and fill up these parentheses. Let's take a look at what that means. Our first one here, we've got x squared plus 7x plus 6. That is a trinomial, meaning we'll factor it with 2 sets of parentheses. Now, I'll look at the first term, x squared. X squared can only be gotten by multiplying x times x, so I'll put that at the beginning of the parentheses. At the back end, I've got a 6. 6 could be 1 times 6, it could also be 2 times 3. So I'll try this until I get it. If I try 2 and 3, 2 times 3 is 6, but I will always need to check to make sure that my answer gets that middle term. If I check here, 2 times x gives me 2x, x times 3 gives me 3x, and 2x plus 3x, if I combine those, gives me 5x. Now, according to the original problem, I was supposed to get 7x. So I know that the answer that I've got here with x plus 2 times x plus 3 cannot be correct. I usually cross that off instead of erasing so I don't forget what I've already done. Based on that then, the 2 and the 3 were not correct. My other choice was 1 and 6, so I will try that. 1 times 6 is also 6, that's how I got that. And now if I check, I get 1x there. X times 6 gives me 6x, and if I add those together, that does give me the 7x I was going for. My correct factorization is x plus 1 times x plus 6. So it's important that we look both at the first term and the last term, and then also the middle term to do a check. Let's take a look at another one involving subtraction, x squared minus 4x minus 32. Again, another trinomial, so I'll set this up with 2 sets of parentheses. X squared, of course, can only come from x times x. But now I've got a negative 32. That's a slightly larger number. We've got quite a few possibilities for this. Those were not one of them. 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8. But the fact that it's a negative 32 means that one of those two numbers must be negative. I'm going to use 4 and 8 to try, and I'm going to use the 8 as a negative and the 4 as a positive. Now, just double checking, negative 8 times 4 is negative 32, so it satisfies that, but nothing is set in stone, remember, until we've looked at that middle term, negative 4x, and seen if our check gives me that. I look here, the insides give me negative 8x, the outsides, x times 4, that gives me positive 4x. And negative 8 plus 4 gives me negative 4. which is what I wanted to get from the original problem. Based on that, x minus 8 times x plus 4 is the correct factorization for this problem. So again, start at the front end, try something from the back end, and double check to make sure that you've done it correctly. And you should be fine. Remember, sometimes this will take more than one attempt. We'll look at two more together here. X squared minus 5x plus 4 is our first one. Again, I will set up my two sets of parentheses. And once again, both of them will have an x at the front because that's how we get x squared. Now, a little tricky here. The number at the back end is a positive 4. And that's great. 4 is a pretty small number. But if I look at my check, my check this time is a negative 5. If I put two positive numbers in the parentheses, I won't be able to get negative 5. So what that tells me is if I'm trying to multiply to get a positive number, but the check is negative, it tells me that I should use a negative number for both of the parentheses, because two negatives will multiply to give me a positive, but add to give me a negative still. I'm thinking about 4 for the numbers. What multiplies to give me 4? It could be 1 and 4, or it could be 2 and 2. But a little mathematical intuition here says that if I'm trying to get a 5, 1 and 4 makes a lot more sense than 2 and 2 in terms of adding. So I'm going to try 1 and 4. I'll run my check, but I have a feeling this is correct. We get negative 1x on that one, negative 4x on that one. Add those together, we get negative 5x. That is correct, and our factorization here is good. Our final problem for this video, we've got 2x squared plus 13x plus 6. I like the looks of this one because I see all positive numbers. That means our factors will all have positive numbers. But we do have something a little bit new with our 2x squared. Now, in all of the previous problems, we've had a regular x squared and used x times x. Now we're trying to get a 2x squared. So now we're going to use 2x times x to accomplish that 2x squared. I don't want both of them to be 2x's because 2x times 2x would give me 4x squared. And that's not what we want. So this is good. I'll now look at the back end with a 6. And 6 could be 1 times 6, or it could be 2 times 3. I'm going to try with 1 and 6 here. I'll try with that. We'll see if this works out. Again, even though the numbers are bigger, we still have to do our check. And that's how we'll know if we're correct. So let's go in with the check. Inside we get a 6x, that's positive. 2 times 1 is 2. 6 plus 2 gives me 8. Uh-oh. We were supposed to get 13. We got 8. This is not right. So before I change the numbers, I'm going to try changing the order of the numbers. So I'm going to try putting the 1 up here and the 6 in the back end. If that works, then we're in good shape. Let's give it a look. For the check, we've got 1 times x for 1x. 2 times 6 gives me 12x. And 1 plus 12 is equal to 13. And what do you know? That is what the check was supposed to be. So it wasn't that I needed to switch 1 and 6. I just needed to switch their location. Our correct factorization was 2x plus 1 times x plus 6. If you've gotten this far, then you hopefully will have seen the idea a little bit better of our factoring. Look at the front end, look at the back end, multiply it out to make sure that it checks. If you're doing that, you should be in pretty good shape for factoring trinomials. I always recommend doing a lot of practice and checking your work as you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.